Hello everybody and welcome to this complete Python 3 hacking course. Now in this course we're going to code multiple projects, each one of them will have its own purpose and you will have all of the code at the end of each project in the resources list to download. And by the end of this course you should have a pretty good knowledge on how to create tools using Python 3 for your own penetration tests. So as I mentioned, this will gather different tools from different fields, such as for example port scanners, backdoors, email scrapers, vulnerability scanners, and many more. I'm going to code as we go and explain everything line by line, so you should have no problem understanding the code. And just in case you don't like to code along, you will have all of the programs available to download at the end of each project. You can simply just download the code and follow along the tutorials as I explain without having to code anything. Okay? Now, one important thing is if you have any questions regarding any program or if you have any proposals and you want me to add something to the course, feel free to post in the Q&A section and I will respond as soon as I can. Also, if you don't understand anything, make sure that you post in the Q&A section or send me a private message and I will also respond there as well. Another thing to mention is that throughout the course there will be different articles and bonus lectures which will give you additional knowledge, and for example if this course doesn't cover something such as for example installing Windows 7 virtual machine, I'll make sure to leave a link to the tutorial where you can watch and follow along the tutorial in order to continue the course. This course will be updated every month with new lectures, with updated code and with your proposals. If you tell me for example you want to see an updated keylogger, I will make sure that I create it and put it inside of a course. Now in the course we are going to use Kali Linux as a virtual machine, and don't worry, I will lead you through the steps of installation in the introductory part of the course. In case you're an advanced ethical hacker, feel free to skip the introductory part and get straight into the coding lessons. For all of you beginners, I will teach you in the introductory video how you can create your own virtual machine and set up your own environment in order to start with this course. Another advice that I have is, in case you don't have too much Python knowledge, feel free to also take a course on the side, as we are not going to cover Python 3 basics. We're going to get straight into coding different tools with Python 3. Now, even though I'm going to explain some of the basics throughout our code, it would still be best for you if you would take a Python 3 separate course, and I will also have some of my recommendations for Python 3 courses in the resources of this lecture. So without further ado, thank you for enrolling, and let's not make this any longer and let's get straight. Hello everyone and welcome to the trailer of our course. Now in this short video I will give you a small teaser as to what you can expect after you finish this course. It's always the best idea to show the students some of the things that you will be doing inside of the course and some of the things that they will learn and master at the end. So for this teaser I decided to show you separate machines, and we will establish two connections with our systems. We will be able to switch between these connections and execute commands on both of the systems. Let me show you, if you don't understand anything in this tutorial, we're going to code all of this and explain it in the future projects. Now, just sit back and enjoy the teaser. Here we have a Linux machine. From this calendar, I will use Python 3 to run the code that we coded. I will run it right here, and it will tell us that it is waiting for the incoming connections. Okay, so now if I go back to my Windows 10 machine, which is this one, I have this JPEG file, which looks like a normal image, but if we execute it, we also open up the image and nothing else. If we see nothing else is being opened, it looks normally, but this actual file in the background opened up our backdoor, which is also a program that we're going to code. If you go to Kali Linux, you see the connection. It is connecting to our commander. Oh, here it is. So we got the connection from 192.168 address of my Windows 10. Let's also run the same file from my Windows 10 virtual picture.jpg. Click on run. It will open up and it will also run the backdoor. Receive the connection, and here it is. Here's the connection from the Windows targets connected to our command and control center. We can check all set by targets command. It will print session 0 with this IP address IP address right here. In order to access any of these sessions, you can one, which is our Windows 10 machine, and type who am I, and execute all of the command config, such as dir, in order to check all the contents in the directory. So here it is. If we want to, we can also set this session and clear the screen, and we can enter Windows machine. If I type who am I inside of a Windows 10 machine, I will see a different response on a different target. If I type ipconfig, you'll see the IP address, as well as there will give you a different output for the security. Okay, we can use the clear command inside of a shell in order to clear the case of multiple commands. If I type the help command inside of a shell function, it will give us all available things with our target. We can change the directories using cd command, download files. We can start our keylogger using the keylog start. So let's type keylog _ start. It will give us a message started. So let's open up Notepad and start typing something inside of our Windows 10 Notepad. So if I type how is your day? ? You see this message. And go back to our Linux machine and we take a look at the help command. Keylog _ dump will print it. So let's try it out. Keylog _ dump. Press enter. And okay, how is your day? ? Can you see this message? Another question mark. We can also keylogger by typing keylog _ stop, which will stop keylogger file, as it says right here. If we want, we can also persistence, which will allow us to start our backdoor every time that the target restarts their machine. We want to start it the first time, and every time our backdoor will start on its own. And an interesting command that we can do, which is not specified right here, is the screenshot command. So if I shot, and before I press enter, let me lower this so we can see everything. If I type screenshot and press enter, in just a few seconds, with a screenshot of the target's desktop saved on our Kali Linux machine. So let's see whether we saved it correctly. Go to the file. Here is the screenshot, saved under the name screenshot0. It is the exact same image that we saw before we pressed enter on the screenshot command. Screenshot option in order to capture the target desktop. And that is just some options that our backdoor can do. And this backdoor is not the programs that we're going to code throughout this course. So this is just a small teaser. I showed you what we are going to do. This is only a small bit or just a small portion of what our backdoor can do. And we're going to see how we can code this inside of the future projects. So thank you for watching, and I will see you in the Welcome everybody to the first lecture of our introductory section of our Python hacking course. So in this tutorial, I'm going to show you where you can find and how you can download and install the VirtualBox software that we're going to need in order to create our virtual machines. Okay, now it is rather easy to install this software, and as its name says, we're going to need it in order to host the Kali Linux machine in which we're going to write our Python code. So let's get straight into how to download it. So all you need to do is go to your Google Chrome or Firefox, whichever search engine you're using, and navigate to the link virtualbox.org. Once you visit this link, it will lead to this page where it would tell you to download VirtualBox 6.1. Now it doesn't really matter which version you're going to download, they're rather all the same, so you can simply just click on the newest one, which in my case at the moment is 6.1, click on download, and it will lead you to this page where it will ask you which type of host you want to download the VirtualBox. And right here under the VirtualBox platform packages, you can choose Windows hosts, OS X hosts, Linux distributions, and Solaris hosts. Since I'm running Windows 10 environment on my main PC, I'm going to navigate to the Windows hosts, and just like that, it should start downloading the VirtualBox installer file onto my machine. As we can see right here, it is not that large of a file, it is 108 megabytes large, so as soon as it downloads, you can simply just run it and install VirtualBox. The process of installation VirtualBox is rather easy, but I'm still going to guide you through the steps as to how to install VirtualBox. So as we can see right here, there's not much time left. Okay, so here it is. Let's open this up, show in folder. I will paste it onto my desktop right here, and all you need to do is run the file. We get a pop-up window which says preparing to install. And here is the welcome window to the VirtualBox. We want to click next right here, next here as well. And under the custom setup, you can choose which options you want to leave unchecked and which options you want to uncheck. So for example, I will leave all 4 checked as I do want start menu entries and I also want shortcut on my desktop. So I'm just going to click on next right here. And this is a warning that usually comes up once you install VirtualBox, which tells you that during the installation of VirtualBox, you might actually temporarily disconnect from the internet. Even though that never really happened to me, it might be the best idea in case you're downloading something to actually wait for that to finish before you actually click on the yes to proceed the installation. Since I am not doing anything at the moment, I'm simply just going to click here yes and click here on install. And as it says right here, this may take several minutes, usually it is around 2 to 3 minutes. It will ask yes, I don't really have a password to type, and it should start installing VirtualBox on my machine. Now, you might notice that I already do have VirtualBox, and this version is actually going to be updated to the newest one, which is 6.1. I'm just going to wait for this to finish, and I will get back to you right away. It's finished, and I'm just going to click right here, finish, and it should automatically start my VirtualBox. And here it is. Now, it will be a little bit different. I already have some machines installed right here. And you see any of these Kali Linux machines or Ubuntu machines, OS machines, on screen, this should all be empty. You should see these buttons right here, which new stands for basically creating a new virtual machine, which we're going to take a look at how to do in the next video. For now on, we successfully installed Oracle VM VirtualBox, and in the next video, we're going to see how we can Kali Linux as our operating system on the virtual machine. Okay, so thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next lecture. Bye! Welcome back, everyone. Since in the previous video we successfully installed VirtualBox, right now we want to see where we can download Kali Linux, which version should we download, and how we can create a virtual machine. Okay, so right now, if you go to your Google Chrome and navigate to the official Kali Linux website, which is the link kali.org/downloads, you should see this page, which will give you the latest version of Kali Linux. In this case, at the current time, this is 2020.1a, and it is the size of 2 gigabytes. Now, as I mentioned, this is the newest version possible, but I will not be using this version in the course. The reason for that is it seems to be a little bit laggy on my PC, but if you want to use the newest version and it works perfectly for you, feel free to download it. It doesn't really matter regarding the course content. So in order to download it, you simply just click on Kali Linux 64-bit and it should start downloading it over HTTP. And you also have the option to download it over torrent if you'd like. Now, for those of you that also do not like the newest version, you can simply just go to another page, which is old.kali.org, which will have all of the previous Kali Linux versions and their release dates, so you can download any version you like. In my case, I will just use the version before the newest one, which is 2019.4. You simply just click on the Kali 2019.4. And it should lead you to this page where you can download the ISO file for the Kali Linux 2019.4 version, 2-bit 2019.4, and use this ISO file in order to continue the installation. If you want to use the newest version, well, then you download this Kali Linux 64-bit, 32-bit in your machine, but you are most likely going to have a 64-bit machine. So as we can see in just a few seconds, it should start downloading it. As I already have the ISO file downloaded, so I will just cancel this installation. I will navigate to my VirtualBox, or we can use the ISO file in combination with the Kali Linux virtual machine. Also, you might have noticed that I already have a Kali Linux installed right here. I'm going to use this one for the actual course. I'll show you the installation of the newest version since it just came out, and it has options during the installation that you might get confused with. So let's cover that as well. Click on the new button, which will create a new virtual machine. It should pop up with this window. It will name the system. You can name it anything you want. I will name it new. Set the type of the operating system to Linux and the version to be there in case you downloaded the 64-bit version of Linux. Now the reason is Linux based, therefore we choose this option. Click will ask you for the memory size or the RAM memory that you want to allocate to your virtual machine. It advises you not to go below the 1 GB of RAM, but you can also go up or 5, maybe even 8 GB of RAM, depending on your actual machine. Okay, 8 GB. We want to leave the option create a virtual hard disk on create. Also leave it on VirtualBox disk image, click on next. That dynamically allocated. Here you allocate the amount of memory you give from your hard disk to the virtual machine. It should not go below 20 GB. As it allows you to download and install a bunch of different softwares used for ethical hacking. 60 GB and click on create. And we can see the new Kali has been added. Before we proceed with the installation of the Kali Linux, in the next video we need to change inside of this machine. So select your machine that you just created, and under the storage settings you want to navigate to the controller ID. By right clicking on it and clicking remove attachment. Click on remove, and you want to click on this circle with a plus. Add the version of Kali Linux that you downloaded, 2019.4 and 2020.8. And to show you for the of this tutorial, the 2020 point. Click on choose. Now another thing that you might want to consider, in case you see them right here, you can go onto the add and simply find the ISO file in your PC wherever you saved it. Okay, let's click on cancel. And also another thing that you want to change is under the network settings. You want to go attached to and click on bridge adapter. Also make sure the internet cable connection, since wireless adapters know to actually provide vocalities and most of them aren't even supported. Therefore, you might actually have problems connect over wireless adapter. That's why it is always the best idea to use it. Okay, so once you finish all of that, click on OK, and you're ready for the installation. So we're going to continue with that in the next video. Steps, and then we are ready to jump into the coding sections of this course. Now keep in mind that even after the installation there are a few things that you should do with Kali Linux. I'm sure to leave all of the links below with them explaining the Kali Linux and explain the command line, and instead we can just focus on the coding parts of the course. Okay. And I will see you in the next lecture. Bye. Welcome back. In this tutorial, we're going to continue with the installation of Kali Linux. So we successfully managed to set up all of the options inside of our VirtualBox, and right now we are ready to start our machine and install the operating system. I'm going to lead you through all of the steps needed to take in order to install Kali Linux, and then in the next video we are ready to start hacking using Python. Okay? So all you need to do right now is click on the start button while you selected your Kali Linux machine. As we can see, this is the first window that we will encounter. Let me just enlarge my screen. It will ask us for different types of options, such as if we want the graphical install or the usual install. It doesn't really matter. We can simply just go with the graphical install and install the Kali Linux like that. It pops up. The language, I will leave it on English. It doesn't really matter. I could just leave it on United States. If you like to use it, click on continue. Here it asks us which type of keyboard configuration you want to use. I will leave American English. Click new. Now while this is installing, another thing I want to mention is the reason why I don't really like the newest version. Because you have to actually have a new user and not use the root account in Linux. And that is also another thing why I prefer the older versions, because you can count to perform like. Now keep in mind that using root account can cause some securities, but since we're using a virtual machine, this is just for that's why I chose the 2019.4 version of Kali Linux, which I find more suitable for this course. But right now, here is the next option of network. The host name, we can call it test. The domain name, we can simply just delete and leave on empty because we don't really need it at the moment. Talked about, it will accept users and passwords. And the options only in 2021A version, which is the one we're installing. We'll have to create a new user. In this case, I'll just call it test. Username for your account will also be test. And here we choose a password for the new user you like. I'm going to type test 1234. And 1234 and click on continue. I will select Eastern. The partitioning of disks, we want to select the option guided using the hard disk that you created in this video and click on continue. Set all files in one partition, as it does even say in the bracket. Click on continue, click finish partitioning and changes to click on continue. Now this will start the installation, which will get interrupted with maybe 1-2 questions. Keep in mind this will take some time to actually install, especially the newest version. It takes now to finish all the installations, and once it finishes that, you should be ready to use your Kali Linux machine. Now we're just going to leave, and if we get any pop-up question, I'm going to get back to you right away. Okay, so here is the first pop-up question. It is the configuration of the package. Here is just to click on continue and leave this blank. Alright, so question, and this is the best feature of the Kali Linux 2020.1a, which allows us to actually install desired tools and not install everything. But even though, I would still advise you to actually select everything or tools for Kali if you plan on using it later on, even of course. Now, for our course, it really doesn't matter what you select, as during our lectures. So right here you can use space things such as Kali desktop environment. You can select everything if you want. It doesn't really matter, just once you select everything that you need, you can click on continue. And this here will take some time. There will be another question which will ask whether you want to install the grub builder to the master boot record. And after that, I believe there will be no more pop-ups and your Kali Linux will be ready to use. So that will be our installation tutorial. Links in the resources. Get familiar with the Kali Linux a little bit more and where you can perform everyone should do after installing Kali Linux. Okay, so that would be, and in the next lecture to see how we can download and install for creating our programs. Hope I see you there, and take care. Welcome back. Now that we got our Kali Linux setup and ready, all we are left to do before we can start coding is install the PyCharm. Now, what is PyCharm, you might be asking? Well, PyCharm is an integrated development environment used for computer programming, especially aimed for Python programmers. It is also cross-platform, so you can get it for Windows, macOS and Linux systems if you'd like. Now let's see how we can actually download it. First of all, we need to open up our Firefox, and depending on which version of Kali Linux you are running, it might be located on the left side of the screen right here, in case you're using the newest version, and in case you're using the 2019.4 version, like I am, you simply just go to this icon right here, type in Firefox, and click enter. It will open up the Firefox for you, and then we can navigate to the Google search bar and type PyCharm. Click on the first link that pops up, and then click on download. You will see that it will automatically realize that we are running Linux systems, and we will get two different versions available for download. Now, since it's open source, we're going to download them. In just a few seconds, this pop-up window should come up, and it will either want to file or save the file. In this case, we want to save the file, click here, OK, and right here under this arrow, if you click on it, you will see that it has started downloading Kali Linux machine. Now, while this is downloading, so I will just lower this, and I will open up the terminal with this icon. In case you be a root account inside the user that you created during the installation showed in previous few videos. Using the root account, as you will simply just be the root account right here. Now, let me just zoom this in so we can a little bit better. Okay, so it's good now. Therefore, some of the commands that we run will require root privileges. This one statement, who am I? It doesn't, but let's say it does. Around who am I command and not get you go who am I. Now on Linux it will ask you for the password of your own account. You simply just type it, execute this command and give it. Okay. That's where require root privileges in order to run. Now let's see if our download has finished. We have 73 more megabytes left. So I'm just to finish, and then we will proceed with the installation. Okay, so we want to click the icon right here, which will open up the folder where our PyCharm is located. We can go to the Firefox as we'll no longer need it, and right here you can see it's updated directory. Now on the new Kali Linux, it might be / name of your / downloads. / downloads. Type ls, and we can. Now you might notice that it has extension of .tar.js, that this is a packed file, and we have to, if we actually run. In order to unpack this, you can just type -f and then the name of the file. Just type py and then tab in order to update the name, so you don't have to by yourself. Press here enter, and in just a few seconds. Okay, so here it is. Once we type ls, we'll have another directory which is PyCharm directory. So let's do the cd command, type ls, and we will see a bunch of this PyCharm directory. We want the bin directory, type ls once. And of this bin directory, we want to run this pycharm.sh file. Notice that this is a .sh extension, therefore we need to run it using bash and then pycharm.sh. Now this command will root privileges in order to run, so in case you are using the newest version of Kali Linux and you are not root account, you simply just type sudo and then bash pycharm.sh. Type no problems. So let's run this. it will run the PyCharm.sh program and it should start PyCharm for us. Got PyCharm opened up, and before we actually click on create new project, we want to go down here under the configure and click on create desktop entry. Create the entry for all users and click on OK. Simply just click on create new project, call it test, since it's the project and we're not going to code anything inside of this project. Below here, it will create the virtual environment for you. It will give you some tips for the programming, for the PyCharm, which we are not interested in. Everything is done, everything is loaded up, we should be ready to code. So let's click on close right here. Let's enlarge this. This is how PyCharm looks. We can go to the test, right click on it, click on new, and file, let's go test.py, Python program right here. Run the program, run, and here it is, the output which says install PyCharm for the first time. These letters. Let's see how we can increase the font of these. So you can go file, go to the settings, under the setting editor, click on font, and under the font, you whichever font you like. So let's say 22, click on OK, and this. So now that we got the PyCharm ready, in the next section, we're going to start off with our first port scanner in Python 3. Okay, so thank you for watching, and let's get straight into hacking in the next section. Welcome back everybody, and let's continue with our port scanner. So we managed to create a function that will convert the domain name into an IP address, and now we want to be able to specify multiple targets for our program to scan. Okay, so how we can do that? Well, it is rather easy. We're going to implement a little bit of changes down here at the bottom of our program. So here you will notice that we have the variable called IP address. Now it says enter target to scan. Well, we can simply just do something like this and specify to the user of this program that they can also enter multiple targets by typing target/s. And also we're going to specify to the user split multiple targets with comma. Okay, so simple as that. Let us make this a little bit better. But this is just the part where we prompt the user how they can specify multiple targets. Now we need to actually split these targets and scan each one of them one by one. So how can we do that? Well, first thing we're going to do is, so we don't get confused, we are going to rename this into targets variable. And then what we're going to do, we're going to delete this line for now. And we're going to specify if and then comma in targets. If there is comma in targets, logically that means that the user of this program specified multiple targets to scan. If there is not comma inside of the targets variable, that means that the user only specified one target to scan. So we're going to lead by that logic. So if comma is in targets, then for IP address, and we're going to call it simply just IP underscore add in targets, and we're going to call the function called split. And what this function does is basically it will split the string with the character that we specify inside of the brackets. So we want to split at every comma. If we split at every comma, that means we're going to split all of the IP addresses one by one. Therefore, we're specifying right here for IP address in targets.split, we want to scan each and every IP address. So scan port, IP address, and then so we want to scan each and every target from this list. And in order to do that, we're going to create a function which is going to be called scan. Now, I know we do have a scan port function, but we're going to use this function in order to scan one single port one by one. And we're going to call this scan function in order to scan each and every target and also convert the domain name into an IP address if needed. So all that this function will take as a parameter will be the IP address, which we get from this for loop right here. Okay? We also want to strip it from any unnecessary empty spaces in case there are some. And right now all we need to do is code this function. Let's go all the way up and call the scan function onto the target. So this will be one single target. And what we need to do is to get back the line that we deleted before, which is the conversion of the IP address. So converted underscore IP will be equal to check IP, which is our function that we coded in the previous lecture. And we need to check the IP address from the target, which is our parameter inside of the function. Okay. And now we will print, just so we know what we are doing. We're going to print, first of all, new line character, which is \n plus, and let's make some type of a smiley right here, which will look something like this. So, and let's print scanning target. We also want to specify which target are we scanning in case there are multiple ones. So we'll specify the string of the target, which will be either the domain name or the IP address. If we specify plus the string of the converted IP, it will specify the IP address since it will already be converted from the domain name. But we don't want that. We want to specify plus the string of target, which will be the names that the user specified to the program. And then we need to copy this part from below with for port in range. Scan each and every port. Let's copy this. We no longer need it right here. We can delete it from here. And we can move it inside of our scan function. So right here. Let me just tab this properly, and we're going to change a few things if we need. So for port in range 75 to 85, we can change that right away, for example, from port 1 to port 100, and you can keep this number as low or as high as you want. Just for the purposes of this tutorial, we're going to leave it on only scanning 100 ports. Since most of the ports that we want to see whether they're open or closed will be in the first 100 ports, okay? And then we will call the scan port function onto the port number and also onto the converted IP, which we converted in the first line of our function. Okay, so everything makes sense. Now, another thing that we need to change down here, since we specified if comma in targets, that means that the actual user specified multiple targets to scan, but what if they specify only one target? Well then, nothing of this will get executed, and we will not really scan any target throughout our program. It will simply just execute the program without scanning the target. So we need to add an else statement right here. So if comma in targets, else, we want to scan the targets. Simple as that, because in this case, the targets will be just one IP address or one domain name. Then it will jump from that function to the scan function, which will convert that IP address and it will perform the scan port function onto the first 100 ports. Okay, so everything makes sense. Now let's see whether we have an error inside of our program or if everything works perfectly. Okay, so let's see how we can run it. Let's open up our terminal and navigate. And first I will enlarge this so we can see everything. And we need to navigate to our PyCharm directory. It will usually be in the /root directory. So here it is, PyCharm projects. I will cd to that directory, type ls. We have the test directory which we created once we installed the PyCharm, and we have our port scanner directory, or our port scanner project. So let's change the directory to the port scanner, type ls once again, and here is our port scanner.py. I will clear the screen and I will run the program. First of all, let's try it with one target. So let's switch it up a little bit. I will use my actual router IP address in order to perform the test of this program. So I will type 192.168.1.1. Press here enter, and you will see it will perform the scan really fast because my router is close to me. Therefore, we can see most of the ports are closed. We have the port 22 open, port 23 open. Let's see which ones are also open. Port 53 open for the DNS and port 80 open. All the other ports are closed, okay? So, right away, we can notice that this is not really that good to look at. We don't really want to print the closed ports as there is too much happening right here, especially if you scan more than 100 ports, it will be really hard to find all of the open ones. So let's see what we can do inside of our program in order to print only the open ports. Okay, so right here, whoops, need to go right here inside our code. And in the scan port function is our print statements for the port open and port closed. So what we can do is instead of printing port is closed, we can delete this. And we can simply specify pass. Now what this will do is it will not perform anything, it will not print any statements, it will simply just pass in case the port is closed. Okay, simple as that. Let's test it once again. Python 3 port scanner.py, specify the IP address of my router once again, and this is a lot better. We can see scanning target and then the actual IP address of my router and then which ports are open. And it is the exact same 4 ports that we saw before. Let's try another target. Let's specify actually 2 targets. If I run the program, and for this test, you can specify the same target as I will, which will be an actual domain name, which is called testphp.vulnweb.com. Okay? So let's specify this target, and also you can specify any other random IP address or domain name if you want. In this case, I will specify once again my router. So we have a mixture of the domain name and the IP address, so we can see whether this will work properly. If I press enter, it will first start off with this domain name right here, and it will scan for the open ports, and then it will proceed to the IP address of the router and scan the open ports for that router as well. So we can see on the first link, it found 4 ports open, port 21, 22, 53 and 80, and on my router, the same 4 ports as before. So our program works correctly. We're almost close to finishing our program, but there is one more thing that we actually want to do. We want to also print which service is running on an open port. For example, let's say we want to discover whether port 80 is running Apache 2 or some other version of a web server. Well, we can do that by simply grabbing the banner on an open port. And more about that in the next lecture. For now on, we are glad that we can scan multiple targets, whether they are specified as a domain name or as an IP address. We can split them by comma. We can also scan one target if we want, and we also print only open ports as we are not really interested in the closed ports. Okay, so thank you for watching this lecture, and I will see you in the next